Hi, everyone. Robin here today from Bell's Mountain Holistic Health Connection. And I'm here with Hannah Jago. And I'm going to introduce her in a moment. But I was on social media and I saw a video that she put out. And I don't remember exactly what the content was, but it was something about her being relentless. And I found it so humorous. And I loved the video. And I contacted her and asked her if she would like to come on and have a conversation because I think you have spunk. I think you have courage. And I
Ah,
love that you speak your truth. I thought
thank
that was
you.
that was amazing. Were people complaining about you trying to advertise your business? How did that all get started? Because
Yeah, it's funny because thank you so much firstly for having me to come and share some of my story with you and chit chat over Zoom. So thank you for that. Yeah, somebody had just described me as relentless. She was like, "You're relentless." And what she was meaning is that, I must have been showing up all the time on her social media. Well, firstly, sorry about that, but I'm not sorry because my point in my video was that, McDonald's don't seem to have a problem with putting an advert every 10 minutes in a program. That is how you know that McDonald's is still there, right? There's an advert, it's subliminal programming. And when we have the gifts that we have to share with the world, the only way we can do that is to tell people.
right,
Most people are not psychic. Most people don't know what we do. I don't have it tattooed on my forehead of what I do. So the only way we can do that is to communicate through social media, through a business card when we meet somebody, through advertising in a magazine if that's what we want to do. And social media for me is the way that I do that. And I was not making any apologies about it, but I just
well,
thought it was amusing.
let me ask you a question. Do you know anyone who has been super successful and hasn't advertised or been relentless in some way at some time in
Right.
their life?
Right. The answer is definitely no. I mean, it doesn't just magically happen and land in your lap. We have to
Exactly.
communicate what we do with the outer world. And I think the issue with that is a lot of people say to me, "Oh, I can't sell anything." Well, first of all, in my view, I mean, I've been in retail management all my life since I was 16. I worked in a restaurant and a shoe shop. And I can guarantee that I never ever sold anybody anything in those establishments because somebody doesn't come into a shoe shop and you sell them a shoe. The person comes in because they are looking to buy something. All we do is we help them with the sizing and then they go to the till and they buy it. We didn't sell them it. They just decided that they
That's
were
true.
buying the solution that they wanted, which was a new pair of shoes. So this ick around selling has got to go because we don't sell anything. And I always say to those people, have you ever got a job before? And they say yes. And I said, then you sold yourself. You told somebody how good you were at this, and this, and these are your skills. And then somebody said, yes, we want to buy your services, and you got a job. And I asked them, did you ever go on a date? Yes, then you had to convince somebody else that you're worth spending time with. So therefore, you have sold the benefits of you at some point. So this sort of discontent around selling and feeling like we're selling to people is the issue. And I always say to people, I have nothing to sell. I have solutions. I am a solution provider, whether that is health or wealth or knowledge. It is my job to communicate that to the world, and people will come towards me and say, I want this solution. I just have this beautiful EMF protection bracelet, and I put a post out, and somebody said, yes, I want to buy it. And she just messaged me saying, oh, I bought that, and it's amazing. I feel great today. Now, I didn't sell her that. She made the buying decision. So
Exactly.
this is why I love to share what I do on social media because I'm just showing people what's in my shop and they come in and decide whether they want to buy the solution for themselves. And that's it. And there are lots.
I love that. anyway, I just found the whole thing quite comical, and I remember that I messaged you and I said,
Yeah.
you just keep doing what you're doing because
Yeah,
you know there's always the option of you can just keep scrolling if you don't like it.
absolutely. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't understand why people make such a big deal. I mean, it wasn't like you were out there, um, you know,
Yeah,
doing
I'm not being
something
annoying.
inappropriate. You weren't
Yeah.
being inappropriate in
No.
any way.
No.
Some of this,
No.
I clicked on this morning and some of the things I saw on my story, I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
seriously?
Yeah.
And I got put in Facebook jail for 3 days. You're gonna laugh. For 3 days. Are you ready? Do you want to know why?
Oh God, I can't even imagine.
I actually took a screenshot of it and saved it because I knew no one would believe me
Yeah.
for sharing too many posts in one day in a
That's ridiculous.
short period of time. So apparently you're only allowed to post so many posts. And what had happened was I was in my memories and I hadn't
Yes.
checked them for a while. So I had a whole bunch of memories and I was
Yeah.
just hitting share, 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 share. Well, it was
Naughty girl.
too many memories too quickly. We don't want to overwhelm the
Yeah.
world with my puppy dogs.
Right. Yeah. God forbid. Right. And
And
yet they'll let some
yeah, they
really,
shut me down for 3 days. I couldn't do anything. I'm like, you're kidding me. And there, I just turned it on this morning. There was a half naked girl on there. And the
right.
other one that was dressed, well, I don't even
Yeah.
want to tell you.
And that's what I
But
mean. They'll let some really heinous stuff and horrible stuff on there, and yet we just do the ordinary things. And this is why, censorship is such a big issue, especially for us in the UK. We can't
here
even be in
too.
the street and talk about going to church anymore. I mean, let's not even get started on that stuff. But
Oh,
it's it,
it's
it's
interesting you
interesting.
said that because well, last Sunday I didn't because I um had hurt my back. I pinched a nerve and I couldn't. I'm
Yeah.
just started moving like yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, but the last time I went to go on and do a live, I always called it my Sunday service because I do it every
Hmm.
Sunday and I do an astrology update.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand why it wouldn't let me go live. And I
Right.
took the word Sunday out. And I'm
Hmm.
thinking to myself, is it because I called it Sunday service?
Right. They think it's religious. Right. So,
Yeah, but our government's pushing religion. So that's
mm,
what I don't understand. Like
yeah.
they want everybody to be back in 1940 or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Yeah.
I don't
There's
know,
a
but
lot
I'm
changing.
wondering now. You're making me think. Is it
Mm.
because it's when I took the word religious or
Sunday.
Sunday
Yeah.
out?
Yeah.
What does that mean? You're not allowed to say Happy Sunday morning or
I
what?
don't know. Yeah, we're not allowed to say the days of the week, surely. I know.
Yeah.
And this is why
Well, it's
books are so
affecting my
important.
mental health.
Yeah, yeah. And this is why books are so important because they contain a lot of knowledge. I mean, if you look at the book 1984 by George Orwell, it talks about censorship and the Big Brother aspect.
We were
And
just
here
talking
we
about that
are.
yesterday.
Oh, funny. And
It
here we
is. It's
are,
interesting.
being
Yeah.
censored. I have a big stack of books right here, so we might cover some of those as we chit chat.
Oh, I have tons of books. You and I, well, they're
Yeah.
starting to take some books off of our shelves in our
Yep.
schools, and I don't know if they're doing that
Yeah,
there or
they
not.
are. Yep,
I
they
don't know.
are. Because they
I ha
don't want us to know the history and the real stuff. And they say, well, if it was before a certain time, we're going to discredit that. Well, why? I mean, it's all about control, and they don't want us to have that knowledge. And this is why reading is so important. This is why having
yeah.
access to books is so important.
It's kind of really weird because I don't ever prep and I don't ever plan for these interviews
Right?
because
You
when I
never
do,
know where it's going
they
to
exactly. And it's so interesting that you brought that up
go.
that
Mm,
I am gonna go there.
yeah.
Um, but without mentioning too many names, that someone
Mm,
from our country actually said that, Hitler didn't go through
right.
Europe. And
Right.
I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I had a great aunt. I have some Polish
Mhm.
heritage,
Yeah.
um, lineage in my family, through marriage. And when I was a little girl, I remember the tattoo
Wow.
in her arm.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now she died about, oh God, she lived well into her 90s. So I'm going to say she lived about,
Hmm.
she died about maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah,
It could be a little bit less, could be a little bit, I mean a little bit more. But she had that tattoo. And it would be the heat of summer. It would be 100 degrees here, which I don't know
yeah.
what that is in Celsius.
Oh, yeah, a
And
lot.
she would
Oh,
wear long sleeves. She
yeah,
would
to
wear
cover it.
long sleeve cotton
Right.
shirts to
Yeah,
cover it up
yeah,
for people. And it was her and her sister
yeah.
and a great,
So
um,
they'd have been there at that time, in other words.
right, a great
Right.
uncle that was in the U.S. military.
Yeah.
He and his brother were both in the military at the same time.
No.
And these two were sisters, married the two sisters
Okay.
so that they could bring them back to the United States. And then when they
Yeah.
got here, they had to get, I don't know, they wound up getting married something like 4 or 5 times because their parents didn't believe they were married or they weren't married Catholic the way
Yeah,
that the
I love
old,
it.
the old school belief with the
Yeah,
Catholic
yeah,
wedding and blah, blah, blah.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I said,
Real.
you could take the books off the shelf.
Right,
You could do whatever you want. You could
right.
try to whitewash whatever you
Yeah,
want to whitewash,
yeah, yeah.
but there will always be
Yep,
someone,
yep.
a wisdom. I call them the wisdom keepers.
Well,
There
my
will
my
always be someone
grandfather,
who knows, who
well,
remembers, who passes that story down.
should I tell you? My grandfather, he was 101 when he died 3 years ago. Okay.
Wow.
He was
Yeah.
the very first tank out of six that went into Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. And he lived the most traumatic life. And when he died, he still had photos that he probably shouldn't have done. Now, the government, when he came home, took
Yeah.
some stuff away from him, but he still had some stuff. And I have those on a CD somewhere that my mother made for me or that he made for us. And I haven't watched it yet, but he was featured in a program that was aired on Channel 4 back in 2014. And, he lived a most traumatic life because he was the first tank that went in and he was the official photographer for the group that had to document what they were seeing and what was going on. There is now a letter in the museum at Belsen that he wrote to my grandmother on the very first day that they went in. And when she died 23 years ago, they found that my grandfather found that letter. And that letter is now in the museum at Belsen. So, yeah, when people say it didn't happen, now here's the thing, it may not have happened exactly the way we think. Yes, there are people who were there and witnessed it, but there's part of me that goes, yes, some of the story we've been told is possibly not correct. If we look at
Right.
what's going on with some of the wars going on right now, the
Right.
narrative is one thing, and what's actually happening behind the scenes is maybe something else. It's really interesting because I really try not to get involved in politics because it gets you
Yeah.
so aggravated, because
Oh, yeah. I can
it's
literally.
all, it's not for
Yeah.
the greater good, for sure. It's only for the very few elites at the top. And this is why being the people that we are, we're super sensitive. We are very sensitive to the world and the changes that are going on. And that's why I truly believe part of my purpose of being here is to help the everyday man and woman have better health and better wealth. Because those people up there are not going to help us. I call myself a light worker, we have a responsibility while we're here to make a difference because we can actually touch somebody, feel them. I mean that in the nicest sense of the word,
Right.
um, to be of effect in our communities and really make a difference. Because if we're relying on those people at the top to do it for us, we're going to be waiting a long time. And this is why I love working with the businesses that I do and sharing the tools that I have and the knowledge that I have, because it makes a difference. Like the lady with the bracelet, her life has changed today. She's got her energy back. It's not from going to a doctor and saying, I feel dreadful, I'm fatigued, I haven't got any energy. She's just put
Right.
this bracelet on and suddenly she's not got all the MF going around her and she's got loads of energy back.
Well,
And that
people don't
means,
even realize how
right,
dangerous those are. I mean, I have a bag
right.
of shungite that I keep
Right, I have
right
shungite
here.
on my phone, exactly. Right. I have blockers on my laptop, my router, everywhere.
Yeah.
And then I wear this. I have a straw that I use that blocks EMF as well. I mean, everything is about frequency. And when we're feeling tired, we have to question, why am I tired? If I go to work and I come home, why am I still tired? Well, all this stuff we're putting around us, if we're sat on our laptop all day, we're then in an electric car. Not me, I don't drive an electric car, but if we're surrounding ourselves with all of that, that is causing massive toxicity to our cells, and that has to come out of the body as flu symptoms or cold symptoms or fatigue or muscle
Right.
aches or, brain issues. And then what do people do? They trot off to the doctors who give you a pill. It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't get rid of, the thing that is causing the problem in the first place. So yeah, whenever I'm coaching somebody, it's the first thing I'm looking at is what's going on in your life from a sort of ergonomic point of view, where you're sitting, where you're functioning, how you're sleeping, what's the Wi-Fi, what are you drinking, what are you eating, what are you watching, what are you listening to? I haven't had a television for 10 years. I don't listen to the news. Well, we just spoke about this a minute
Yeah, we
ago.
were talking about that.
I don't
Yeah.
listen to anything that goes on out there. I'm not listening to all the stuff. I'm not interested. I can use my eyes in front of me. Um, so yes, it's a very interesting time to be alive, I think, with all these changes going on.
It is, and all the things that you were just saying, we do a lot of similar type work.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting with with you was we were talking just a few minutes before we came on, and we were talking about what you do, the different things that you do, and I'm like, oh, that's just the job that pays the bills. This is what we really
Right.
do, right?
Yes.
And I always find it interesting how, hey, I always find it interesting how people take jobs that they really don't want to do, but they might have to take them to pay the bills,
Yes.
but how that sometimes makes them feel so bad
Yeah.
that they don't do what they're really meant to do.
Well, and they're
Hey,
not valued. That's the problem with, and don't get me wrong, there are lots of people that do a job they absolutely love. For example, you ask anybody that works in a care home in the UK, most of them will say they absolutely love what they do because they get to care for people, they're making a difference. But actually, when it really comes down to it, they'd rather be traveling on holiday or spending time with their dog, like I do. Um, or they might want to be at home with their kids. And yes, they love their job. And yes, some people may not love their job and it is just purely to pay the bills. But even those people that absolutely love what they do still get to the end of the month and go, I still don't have any money, So
yeah,
I've been working all of this time. And so what I love doing is helping people find their purpose. And, as I mentioned to you just before we came on, inside my heart and my body, I am a creative person. I'm a creative artist. I'm a musician and a singer. Everything about what I do is creation. And in reality, that's what most of us have inside us from when we're very, very little. You only have to look at an 18-month-old with some pots and pans and a wooden spoon, and they're making music out of kitchen utensils, right?
right.
They are being creative. And of course, we go off to school, and then all of that creativity gets slapped out of you because it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit the 9 to 5. We need you working, so all of that schooling that we have dumbs down that very nature of who we are. And it's a perfect time for me to bring in my first book. This is called Outwitting the Devil. This is by Napoleon Hill. And some of your readers might know Napoleon Hill. He wrote Think and Grow Rich, one of the
Right,
most successful business books in the world.
right,
Now, when he finished writing that, he then wrote this in 1938. However, his wife implored him not to publish this book because he was being hunted out of town. He was being persecuted for having written Think and Grow Rich, which he was commissioned to write by Andrew Carnegie. So Andrew asked him to write this book about what made people successful. And of course, what it actually did was it exposed the elites. And of course, they didn't want the public knowing that. And so Think and Grow Rich, took a long time to become the success it has. But then when he wrote this book, it was exposing how they don't want you to be successful, really. And it's done through the devil. So this book was hidden in the Napoleon Hill vault. So he died in 1970. Then his wife died and the surviving children. This book was only ever first published in 2011. Now, that's really not that long ago. And when you look, I mean, I truly believe if everybody read this book, they would suddenly realize why they're in the state they are, whether that's their health, their wealth, their relationship, their addiction to alcohol, like I was, why religion is in their head, why schooling is in their head. You know, everything has been done by design. And I'm going to turn to page 82. I have read this bit so many times that I even know what page it's on. So, how this book goes is Napoleon asks a question and then the devil responds. So he says, hang on, let's go back one page. Napoleon says, I'm beginning to understand how you gain control of the minds of children through the help of their parents and religious instructors, but I do not see how the school teachers help you in this damnable work. And the devil says, school teachers help me gain control of the minds of children, not so much by what they teach the children, as because of what they do not teach them. The entire public school system is so administered that it helps my cause by teaching children almost everything except how to use their own minds and think independently. I live in fear that someday some courageous person will reverse the present system of school teaching and deal my cause a death blow by allowing the students to become the instructors, using those who now serve as teachers only as guides to help the children establish ways and means of developing their own minds from within. When that time comes, the school teachers will no longer belong to my staff. I have read that passage so many times because what the devil is saying is when those children are in school and they say, but miss, that's black. And she says, no, it's white. And they go, no, miss, it's black. And she says, no, it's white. And eventually that child goes, oh, okay, it's not, it's white. So that creativity just gets stamped out of us. And I know this because so many times when people come to create art with me, because I do workshops and things, the first thing people say is, oh, I can't paint or I can't draw. When people come for singing lessons, they say, oh, but I can't sing. I'm like, which teacher is in your head? And every time they will say, oh, Mrs. Brown or Mrs. Green or Mr. White or whoever it is. And what I do is I say, please go to the door, open the door and ask that person to leave your head and then shut the door and then come back in my house. Because we are letting people rent space in our heads for free,
Free, yeah. Yeah.
right?
Oh, I
It
used to
is,
talk
this is
about that
so and
all the
so.
time.
And Mr. So-and-so from 30, 40 years ago, they're living in a head going, oh, but you can't paint, you can't sing. So we put this limit on ourselves to stop our own creativity. And yet, everything in our world that we see has been created. The furniture we sit on, the phone we use, the internet that we use, somebody created it. The clothing
Right.
that we're wearing, the hair dye, you know, somebody created all of those things that we have. And so every part of our life is about creativity. You know, whether you are a teacher or caring for somebody, or whether you're a digital website developer, every bit of what we do is about creating something. And that could just be joy, you know.
I've been really kind of big on, you know, just watch the animals. Animals act on instinct.
Oh, totally.
We have been, our instincts have been taught out of
Out
us.
of us. Exactly.
So we don't know how to think for ourselves unless someone tells us how to do it. And that starts at a young age. So I
Mm,
agree with that. You know, that book is
yeah.
now going to be on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm hoping I could get it because they've taken
You
a
could do
lot
it
of
on audio. It's great.
they
It'll be on a
yeah,
banned list one day for sure, because the
yep.
information in there is dangerous. You know, he talks about being a
Well,
drifter
the truth
or a
is always
non-drifter.
dangerous
Right.
to the
Right. Well, it gives
untruthful,
you
right?
power. Power is knowledge, right?
Exactly.
Right.
That's why I always say, you know,
Yeah.
the most dangerous person on the earth right now is the one that tells the truth.
Right. It's
Yeah.
interesting too because, when you read that book, he's talking about being a drifter or a non-drifter. Now, for me, nearly 14 years ago, the 7th of July, 2011, I decided I was no longer going to let alcohol ruin my life. And that's in the book. He wants you to be in the fear of economic insecurity, not having enough money. So therefore you go to work and do your 9 to 5 because that's going to continue to pay the bills. But actually what you really want to do is go and look after animals all day long in a veterinary practice. But because you haven't got a qualification, you don't do it. But you could go and volunteer and bridge the gap, in that meantime. But he wants you in fear of ill health. He wants you sick. He wants you addicted. He even talks about drugs of the future in the book, and here we are in America, we have the biggest opioid epidemic. There's numerous films about it now, done
Right.
as Hollywood, but actually they're just telling the truth of what's happening. So he
Well, yeah.
wants us sick, he wants us ill, he wants us in that 9 to 5. He doesn't want us stepping out. And what the devil says is when somebody thinks for themselves, I have lost them. And this is why we have to have discernment when anybody presents us with information. I mean, look at what happened 5 years ago. The television told you something, and you all went, oh my God, I'm going to die if I don't do this, and put something in my arm. Now, some of us went, okay, let's use some discernment and let's go research this and let's see what's going on. And we went, okay, I think nature knows pretty much how to do immune system, and if I put good things in my body and look after my health and get enough sleep and get enough fresh air, I think my body will know how to do it. So lots of people said, no, I'm not doing that. And you're right, we have lost how to connect with nature. The animals know how to do it. If there's a tsunami going on, the animals know what's happening. They run for the hills. And what we would do is go, that's weird. All the birds have flown away. Why have all the dogs gone? Where have all the
Not
elephants gone?
not me. I'm part
Oh,
Native American, so if I don't hear birds or so, like I've even noticed like you hear how quiet it is. Like I
right,
know we're going to get a storm. I know it's coming
right,
today. I even said, "Is it supposed to rain today?"
right.
And according to my phone, it says there's only a 9% chance. And I'm like, "Yeah, but my
Mm,
shoulder hurts. It's quiet. There's no
yeah,
birds.
birds know
Like
what's happening.
there's a storm coming.
Right,
Like
this
I
is
could feel
coming.
it. You could
They're
almost
protecting themselves.
you
They're
could
hunkering
smell it.
down.
You could
Right.
smell it in the air. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like when you're in tune with
Oh,
like,
I love
you
that
know,
smell of rain when it's coming.
I
Like
do
when we have
too.
a
And
big storm,
I
love it.
actually enjoy a good storm, to be
Oh,
honest
me
with you.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love a
Yeah.
thunderstorm. But yeah, we've forgotten how to live with nature and how to go back to basics. And that's a lot of what I'm doing when I'm coaching is helping people just unpack the absolute dross of their life. When people come to me and they're like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, we have to go back. Like, what's your trauma? What happened in childhood? Because when people say to me, oh, but I've got fibromyalgia, the doctor told me I've got this. No, you don't. You've got neurological trauma because something happened when you were a child and it never got dealt with. And your body's hanging on to that through cortisol and adrenaline. And now your muscles are going, oh, I can't cope anymore. Let's make you tired. And we just talked about that a minute ago, didn't we? Of
Yeah.
how when, we're fatigued, that is the body saying you need to sit down and rest. But of course, the 9 to 5 treadmill has us going, I've got to go and work for this person. I've got to pay the bills. And this is why I work from home because I don't want that pressure. I don't want that stress in my life of somebody else determining how I spend my day. I went for a walk at
I
10
don't
o'clock today. It was great.
I don't it's not the UK. Is it Japan or China or one of the Asian countries? I don't know which one,
Okay.
so I apologize. Where they actually take these like naps, save time like nap times during the
Right.
day, right? And it
Right.
might be just for 20 or 30 minutes, like a little
Yeah.
power
Well, and the
nap, which
Europeans do that a lot with siesta, don't they? And have a sort of 3 till 4 o'clock and go have a nap. Yeah.
yeah, I know Greece does it. I'm not
Yeah.
as familiar with some of the
Yeah.
European countries as you are
Yeah.
because you're over there, right?
We're just over the
So
pond, over the river.
yeah, like a friend of mine in Greece is like, oh yeah, well it's Monday, we only work half a day, and Monday
Right,
and Wednesday, and so I'm like,
right.
well, how do you all pay your bills? You're
Different.
never working. You're always partying and eating food, and
Right.
they're like, yeah, but they go in the middle of the day, and then they go back,
Yeah.
and then they go back to work, and then
Yeah.
they work. They just keep the
Well, and
shops
also
open
they
later at
eat
night.
they eat very locally. That's the other thing,
Yeah,
they
they all
eat,
gather together
yeah.
in
It's all about
community.
community, right? And
Yeah.
that's Europe for you. The UK has lost that, America has lost that. But
Oh yeah.
again, that's by design. That's in Napoleon Hill's book. It is by design to separate the family, to separate community, because once we're
It's
separate, we are weaker. It takes out, it's like having a
because
flock of sheep, take out the weakest.
so before I did all this
Hmm.
in my what was supposed to be my real job,
Yes.
I w- I studied law.
You
I worked
studied
as
what? Sorry.
I studied law,
Oh,
and
law. Sorry. I thought you said
and
golf.
I was a uh, paralegal. Wound up working in a subcontracted position for the government, but I
Hmm.
minored in psychology. So when
Interesting.
I sit back now and I
Hmm.
look at everything from before, I think,
Yeah.
how could I ever be so clueless? And I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
and I couldn't wait to get out of there and see the world. I just wanted to go see the world,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Little did I know how unaware and unprepared I was,
Right.
and how much safer I was on that farm in the
Right.
middle of nowhere,
Right.
because it was all about community and family. And if it was a
Yeah.
bad summer or a bad crop, the farmer up the street was growing something else and shared with
Yeah.
they don't do that
No.
anymore. Like they don't.
No.
If you give a child 9 out of 10 kids in the United States a packet of seeds and a
They
cup
don't
of
know what to
dirt
do with them.
and a
No.
cup of dirt, they'll look
Right.
at you like you're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's by design. I know in the UK, we spoke a little bit about this. Farmers are being told they can't plant crops right now. Why? Well, because then we won't have food, and they want food shortages so that they can control what we eat. And allotments, we have a lot of allotments in the UK where lots of people grow their veg in a contained space. Those will be bulldozed for housing very soon. Growing veg in your garden is considered to hurt climate change. Really? Okay. So I'm not having to fly my green beans from Argentina to the UK. I'm just growing them in my back garden. How on earth is that supposed to hurt climate change? I mean, it's madness, utter madness.
Well,
You
how
know,
is growing plants hurting the climate anyway?
Right. That's what it says on the media. It's like, okay, I'm just, and again,
Oh wow,
that's
your news is just as
oh,
crazy, if not worse
it's
than ours.
it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And again, my aim is always to help educate people. I'm on a call this evening about how to prepare. So many people we've just seen Greece and Portugal and Spain and France have blackouts. It's just happened in
Right.
Italy.
Yes.
And apparently we've got to prepare for a 72-hour blackout. The UK is just saying it so that we'll prepare. But of course, so many people think that that's conspiracy. So they go, oh, that's nonsense. And yet, when it happens, those people will literally lose their minds.
Well, yeah, but it's been all over the media that
Right,
they want to block your sun, which is
right. Yeah. I
that
mean,
that
that's
that's your vitamin D.
ignorance.
That's what
Yeah.
activates your
Your vitamin D and everything. Just, I mean, you need
yeah,
that to
I'm
function,
trying to think, what is it? Your melatonin, like your
Yeah.
sleep cycle, and all,
Right.
like
And of course, if you don't have that
that's
imbalance, oh, then you
crazy.
can't sleep properly. So then you go to the doctors and you get a sleeping pill, utter madness. And
Yeah,
yet,
it's just
they're building solar farms all over the UK. I mean, I just drove around Wales and I saw loads of them when I was driving around Scotland. On the way there are loads and loads of solar farms. And yet, you need the sun to make the solar work. But of course, if the solar can't work, that means there's not enough electricity. So again, it's then all about control. And
so
so many
again, what
people,
is the benefit of
Right.
blocking some of the sun's
Right.
rays? What is the purpose? What do
Yeah.
they think that's,
Again,
or what
that's
are they
about control.
telling you that's supposed to do?
Right. Well, that again, it's about control. If we don't have as much sun, we can't grow vegetables. We're dependent on the government, and all of these things. So this is why we have to plan. I have wood in my back garden. I have bottled water in my garage. I have camping equipment. And it's just little old me. I'm widowed 3 years now. I don't have my husband here, so I have to look after myself. And, I have boxes and boxes of candles and batteries and torches and Swiss Army knives. And if something's happening, I have food stored. I do a lot of dehydrating of surplus fruit and veg. I keep all my jars from anything I buy so that I
Yeah,
can
I do
store
too.
food in them. Right. And it's very interesting because in the
I've even
July,
stocked up on tinctures.
yes, yeah,
It's
yeah,
just in case
right.
someone
You need
gets
those.
hurt or someone gets sick or
Right.
someone.
Yeah. And actually, a lot of the gadgets that I use are all about natural healing, and we have to be very careful how we say those things.
Exactly.
But natural repair work I like to use. It's a little
Right.
bit of a safer word. Um, but so many people don't think things like this are going to happen. And yet all of Portugal and Spain and France just had that happen. And, unfortunately, there are people that died who were relying on electricity in hospitals and things because the hospitals didn't have enough generators. And again, these little things happen so that the governments and the tracking abilities can see what we do. They can see how we respond. A year or so ago, we had a huge WhatsApp blackout and we had a huge Visa and MasterCard card blackout. So then what happens is they go, right, how many people went to a cash point? What do we see the response from a drama happening? Here's the drama. So what do the public now do? Do they go and prepare? Do they go and stock up? They can see it economically, what happens in the banks and the shops. It's all tracked. They can see what's happening. So
Oh
they
yeah.
can watch our response and go, what percentage of the population went and got cash out and put that back into the economy? It's all about money. So it's the problem,
Yeah.
reaction,
And
solution,
they're
you
getting
know.
ready. They're prepping us for the money transition to
Yes, yeah,
digital.
yeah.
I mean, that's been coming
Right.
like
Oh,
I've been
yeah.
seeing that in the astrology for like the
Yeah,
last probably 4 years or so.
yeah,
That we're really close to it. It's
yeah.
probably going to be
Oh,
the
it's
next
already
year or
happening in
two.
the background. It's
Oh,
already happening. Yeah,
listen, I tell people all the time and people get
yeah.
scared. I'm like, don't be afraid. I said, do you remember the first time? Now I'm 62.
Right.
Okay. I remember when we didn't have debit cards.
Right, and you had to write a checkbook. Right.
Okay. So if you can remember your first debit card, this isn't
Exactly.
really going to be much
No,
different than that.
no, no. As long as they don't insist that I put a chip in my body and I gotta
Yeah,
wave my
me
hand over
too,
something,
because
I'm done at that point. I'm
me
done then.
too. I said the same thing. No
Yeah,
chips are going in my
yeah,
body. I think a couple people over here have put too many chips in their body, and that's what's wrong with them.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but that
And yeah,
I don't ever want people,
yeah.
to be in fear because like even
Mhm.
like with the name of it with my channel here, I spelled
Yes,
holistic,
yes, yes,
WHOLEE, right? And
yeah.
people are like, you spelled holistic health wrong. I'm like, no,
No,
because
it's
for
done on
me, it
purpose.
is the whole
The
mind,
whole
body,
body.
and
Right.
and soul or
Yeah,
spirit or whatever word you want to use,
yeah,
because it's all interconnected. One doesn't
yes,
like people go, well, you're talking about something in school. Yeah,
yeah,
because something that happened when you were 3 or 4 or 5 years
yeah,
old, or maybe that Catholic kindergarten teacher that
yeah,
smacked your fingers with the
yeah,
ruler,
yeah,
she might have been your trauma.
yeah. Absolutely. And you're
She might be
hanging
why
on to
you
it.
can't pick up a ruler today. Like
Right,
she might be why you can't read a ruler today because
right.
there's some kind of trauma attached to it.
Yeah.
And people go, "Oh, that's
I
ridiculous."
know. It
Think
sounds
about it.
ridiculous.
Think
Right.
about it. Is
Yeah,
it?
I know. And when
Or
I'm
do they just
coaching,
want us to think it is?
that's why we go back, when I'm coaching is like, right, tell me why we're at where we are at today, because you didn't just get sick today. It's taken all of these years, little
Exactly.
bit by little bit, little bit by little bit. And, I'm in the middle of writing a book at the moment called The Invisible Rucksack. And, we
Ooh.
carry on our back all of these rocks in this invisible rucksack. And each one has got a name, that bully, that abuser, that horrible boss, that parent, all of these things. And what I say to people is it's very easy to just take one out and acknowledge it. It happened. It doesn't mean you need to still carry it with you. And what I suggest is that they're just driving along, they open the window and they just throw it out.
Throw it out.
Just throw that rock right out the window. Nobody can see
Yeah.
it. Looks like you're batting a fly away. It doesn't matter. But the more you take those out, the less neck problems you're going to have, the less migraines you're going to have, the less back problems you're going to have. The reason you said you had your back went recently, maybe you were just carrying something and it went,
Oh,
hello.
I told you I didn't listen. I knew it. I
Right.
knew I needed to, and I just was pushing to get it done because
Yeah.
I had like three projects going at the same time, and that particular project was supposed
Yeah.
to be done, but
Wow.
I had a dream with this massive download, and I'm like, this has to go in the book. So then I
Wow.
had to change something so I could reformat the book, and I was
Yeah.
pushing, pushing, pushing to get it done.
Yeah.
And I knew it. As soon as I woke up in the middle of the night screaming in
Yeah.
pain, I could not move.
Yeah.
And I knew it was from being sitting in one position and not moving around enough. And
Yeah.
I pinched a nerve in my back. And that was it. Like I'm
Yeah.
an astrologer. I know the and
Right.
we all know to ground during Taurus season. So if you're
Yeah.
not grounding and you're not resting,
Yeah.
trust me when I tell you,
Yeah.
whatever it is that you think
Yeah.
is so important, let it go right now
Just right.
because nobody else is going to do it. Trust me
No.
when I tell you, your kids aren't going to pick it up. Your
Nope.
husband's not going to pick it up.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, you're going to trip over the dog's bone. It'll be there. It'll be there. Take a day or two to yourself. Don't get yourself sick because
Well, and my astrology just said I need to get more grounded, didn't it? So tonight, maybe I think after all my meetings, I'll just have a dog walk and just have a nice lazy bath and just relax, because I
well,
could sit here
you're
and blah,
high
blah, blah.
energy.
I
You're
am
high
very high energy.
you're
I'm
high
a
energy. But
lot.
I actually found your chart interesting when you shared it with me, and the more you talked, the more I could see it in you. I'm like, oh yeah, there's that. There's that.
And that's where that relentless bit comes from. I'm a bit like a dog with a bone. When that woman said you're relentless, it's like, yeah, but, when I know what I know, I'm going to share it with somebody. I'm not just going to gatekeep this
Yeah, but
stuff.
that's your Capricorn. And let me tell you something. Have you ever met a Capricorn that wasn't successful? Have you
No.
ever met a Capricorn that didn't have a plan? They
Wow.
plan for their legacy, they plan for their future, and they're hard
Interesting.
workers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
They're also somewhat detail oriented, like a
Mhm.
Virgo, which you have a
Yes.
lot of Virgo in your chart.
Yeah. I'm Virgo through and through.
And then I forget what the other one was, but those two stuck with me,
Yeah.
and the learning and the
Yep.
healing part of you, the
Yeah.
part that wants to be of service, the Virgo
Yeah.
wants to be of service to you. Like it just
That is
shows,
definitely me.
and it
Mm.
really, really like you radiate it. Like your
Ah,
energy is just it's
thank
high.
you.
It's
Yeah.
high. It's quick
I don't know
moving.
how to be slow. I mean, when I'm knitting that and crochet, that kind of makes me sit and be quiet. But
Well, that makes you focus.
I'm also quite distracted sometimes. But it's interesting because I know that part of my purpose here, I've had many lessons I've had to learn along the way. And it's kind of like every 10 years, I keep getting one slap in my face. And then I'm like, oh, okay, now I need to learn this one. I mean, 23 years ago, I was run over and told I'd never walk again. And I had to learn that that supermarket that I was working for did not care about me at all, but it taught me that I never want to work for somebody ever again. So then what happened is my eyes were open to opportunities that came towards me because I wasn't going to go work for somebody else. So I had to find other ways of working from home and creating my own business. So that incident taught me how to stand on my own 2 feet, ironically, because I had to learn to walk again. I had major surgery. And then
So
years
sorry,
later,
honey.
I came into a divorce, and I learned that I was never going to be treated like this ever again. So that was helping me learn my self-worth. And shortly after that, I came into AA. And the minute I stepped into AA, I had to learn acceptance. I did not like, and I do not like the fact that I'm an alcoholic, but I had to accept it. I would love nothing more than to have a nice glass of champagne if I go to a wedding or, drink a nice bottle of beer on a hot summer's day. Now, I sometimes have the non-alcoholic version now, but I know that I can't do that, so I have to accept it. And acceptance is what helped me 3 years ago when I lost my husband suddenly. He had a massive brain bleed. He had been a little bit ill for a while, and he had just had a massive brain bleed, and it took him straight away. He didn't know anything about it, and he was brain dead by the time he got to hospital. Um, and that's how he always wanted it. He said, if I go one day, I want to go, be gone very quick. His dad had had a stroke at 56. He was 55. Um, and he always said, if I'm on life support, switch it off. I'm not interested. So we had
Yeah.
agreements between us. And he said to me, if I'm gone one day, you'll be very sad, but you'll just get on with it. And that's how I've had to be. But that acceptance in AA helped me the most when I came into widowhood because I didn't like that fact at all. There was nothing I could do about it, but I had to accept it. And it's all of those learnings that have helped me move through these life traumas, not with denial or brushing them off, but just by moving through them quicker. Because it's funny, I'm looking at a picture in the corner of Winston Churchill that somebody drew for Chris. And Winston Churchill once said, if you're going through hell, don't stop. In other words, don't stop to have a look around at the view because this man's going to do his job on you, right? And so,
Exactly.
therefore, if you are going through some trauma in your life, put some positivity around you, put good people around you, put good food, good water, good intention around you, and you will move through it quicker. It doesn't mean to say I'm moving through my grief, getting it over and done with as quick as I can. I'm 3 years in, and boy, do I have some days where I have grief. But I don't need to hang on to it. I can just go, okay, I acknowledge this. This is how I'm feeling in this moment. I just don't need to stay here. I can acknowledge
Yeah.
it for however long it needs to be and keep moving forward. Um, and I think that's really, or that attitude to life and its traumas and its events is what's helped me the most. Because here's the reality for you and me and everybody listening to this Zoom right now or this podcast is every single one of us is going to die one day. When people say, oh, well, we don't need a will because, if I'm like, it's not if, it's when you die, like which reality are you living in that you're
Yeah.
not going to die? And we don't like talking about these things, right? But when we choose to acknowledge the things that are going to happen, when they do happen, for example, you may have an accident one day. We're not asking the universe for anything to happen to any of us, but it happens. We are going to have accidents. We are going to experience job loss, relationship loss, maybe a home loss, a loss of a loved one, a pet, a friend. We are going to experience these things. So if we can accept that they're going to happen, then when they do happen, it's not a really horrible surprise. It's still not a very nice thing, but it's not like the biggest shock on the planet. It's just, oh, here we are. Now we're dealing with this. And so then we move forward. And it's very interesting because, we have all these traumas that happen, and a lot of the times people don't understand that it's that trauma that's making them sick, whether it is a relationship or, something that happened to us when we were 14 or 12 or whatever it is. But in letting that go and acknowledging it happened, but we don't have to keep carrying it with us, is what helps us progress and personally develop. And I think all of the businesses that I'm involved in are very heavily focused on personal development and reading and processing and learning because as human beings we're incredibly complex. I mean, this dog, she's got it really easy. She gets up, she eats, she goes out for a business, we go for a walk, she comes home, she goes to sleep. I mean, she doesn't have anything to think about. The most she has to think about is mum happy with me today? Are we being a good dog? Am I listening to her? Am I sitting on the edge of the road? When do I need to cross? Because she says, let's go. That's the
Well, you
most she
heard
has to think
mine.
about.
Squirrels. Mine are the squirrel hunters, the great squirrel hunters. Yeah.
No, that's the
They're,
most they have to
they're
think
in the
about.
other room. Right.
No, but as humans, we're very, very complex. And I truly believe if we all had some therapy once a month, the world would be a lot nicer place because we would learn that these things are okay to happen to us, that they're
Right.
going to happen, and that we just need to learn how to accept and go, okay, that wasn't very nice, but it's not the end of the world.
I find some things really interesting that some behaviors that I would well, it's not for me to determine what's acceptable and what's
Yeah,
not acceptable for
we
someone else,
listen and we
but
don't judge.
exactly. It's and I don't really mean this from a place of judgment, so that's why I
Yeah,
wanted to make that clear.
yeah.
But
Disclaimer.
it seems like we've normalized some things that really I wouldn't normally consider normal, right?
Yes.
And things that are really normal and natural, like a woman breastfeeding her baby, we're like throwing a
Right.
blanket on her and covering her
Right.
up, and oh my God,
Right.
like you can't do that in public.
Right.
You can't
Right.
breastfeed your baby.
It's
Have you been on
ridiculous.
Facebook today? Like
Right.
seriously, like I literally clicked off. The my
Right.
stories are like like, and I'm not
Appalling.
an old
Right.
prude. Like they're
Right.
appalling. Okay,
Yeah. I
so
hear you. Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, what is
Yeah.
wrong with me?
Well, and the kind of mental health epidemic that we have of everybody's got mental health. Well, yeah, you do. Everybody's got life going on, and you're just not dealing with it. So therefore, you've got mental health issues. Go and deal with your stuff, and then you won't have those issues. You're expecting a pill to fix your brain, when actually, if you just go and talk to somebody and share how you're feeling and open up about the things that are going on for you, you'll realize, oh, guess what? You're not alone. We all have some level of mental health. But it's how the level of that we actually deal with, or we choose to just go, oh no, I'm wrong for thinking that. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I've got a friend, and her and I have this big joke about the fact that we can sometimes be driving along and we'll just think to ourselves, oh, I'll just drive under that truck. And she said, oh my God, I think that sometimes too. And I'm like, why do I think that? I'm a normal, nice human being. I'm very level-headed. I have a lovely life. I have no design to off myself, right? But my brain goes, wonder what would happen if you just drive under that truck? Would you die straight away? Would you be crushed? Honestly, that's where my brain goes, right? Now, that doesn't mean I've got mental health issues. It just means I've got a curious brain that wonders about something. And she said, oh my God, I thought I was crazy because I'm thinking things like that. And I went, you're not alone. I said, one of my sisters says this too. Like, we think this. Like, why do I think
But
this? I'm normal.
that wasn't it. That wasn't a movie where they did that, where the car went underneath of a tractor trailer and then came back
I
out.
don't
I don't know
know.
if it was Tom Cruise that did it or
Oh,
not,
where it
but
goes underneath and then oh,
yeah,
probably in a
some
sports
kind of
film or
action movie or
yeah, an
whatever.
action movie. Yeah.
But
But
of
that
course,
is
you see stuff
right,
like that. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So it's
right,
somewhere in your brain. So of course
right.
you're
And
gonna think about it.
that's Hollywood for you. It's preemptive programming, but it doesn't mean I've got a mental health issue just because I'm thinking that. But of course, we can obsess and obsess and obsess about things. And I don't actually have this book to show you, but there's an amazing book called Stop Thinking, Start Living by Richard Carlson. And I remember reading that book and just going, oh, okay, I don't need to obsess about this thought. And of course, that can make you then put a label on yourself and go, oh, I've got ADHD because I keep thinking about things. Well, no, I'm
Right.
just a normal human being that has lots of thoughts, right? And it's okay to have lots of thoughts and to think lots of things because I have a curious brain. I like to imagine and create and wonder about the world. That doesn't mean I've got ADHD and it needs to be in a box. It just means I've got creativity in me. Um, so yes,
I think it's Mental Health Awareness Month here, isn't it?
it
Isn't it?
is. Yeah,
Is
I
it?
think it is
Okay.
here too. Yeah. So it's being aware of your own mental state. It doesn't mean that it's bad if you're having bad or negative thoughts. It just means your brain is allowing you to explore those and you can either act on them or not act on them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that those are bad things either. I think some negativity forces you to create positive change. You know, when I was sitting at the bottom of the stairs on the 7th of July 2011 saying, God, please help me, you know, that was a negative place for me. But
Right.
what came out of that was massive positivity. I went to AA that day. I got the help and the support I needed. And touch wood, I have not had a drink since that day. Now, when my husband died, very negative situation, and my family were all incredibly worried that I would drink again. But I say, apart from my husband dying, which is really SHIT, I love my life. I love what I do. I love the gifts I have. I love being able to share my businesses with people and share my knowledge. If I take a drink today, I can't do that. I can't be of service. My daughter's in Thailand right now. My son's in London. If either of one of them call me and say, Mum, I'm stuck, I need help, I can get in my car and go. If I take one drink today, I can't do that. I can't be of service to my family and the people that love and care for me. And that's what keeps me sober every day. But from that negative situation came, as I say, enormous positivity. And it's 180. Like if I stayed going in that negative direction, I cannot have a positive reaction in any way, shape, or form. So it's interesting when we talk about the whole aspect. Sometimes you have to split yourself in half and go, I'm not going over there anymore. I'm
Right.
going over here, you know. And what
Right.
I've created from that is a whole life because I did not have a whole life before. I had functioning alcoholism and, you know, barely being a friend to people. It was chaos, you know, and out of that is really why I've got to where I am today, by being sober and being open to opportunity. And apart from the bleach and the hair dye, I'm not perfect. I live a fairly holistic life. I use a lot of natural products. I use some amazing wearable neurotech patches that make my brain work properly. I use a urine stick that tells me all my levels of my minerals and vitamins, and I can change things and I can act upon them. I do a lot of reading, lots of meditation and all the good stuff. And I wouldn't have that if I wasn't sober and being mindful of all the toxicity that's out there and making sure that I keep my body as toxic and toxin free as possible. You know, I make my own sun cream, I make my own deodorant and toothpaste. I haven't quite got to the shampoo and the conditioner yet, but I make sure that I'm using
They're
brands that
actually
don't.
easy. They're actually easy.
They're easy, right? I've
I
got
do those
Castile
too.
soap in my kitchen. It can't be that
Yeah.
hard.
You can't, yeah, it's not
Right,
hard at all. But
right.
the beautiful thing is what you're leaving out. The one
Hmm.
thing that you're leaving out is also important, and that is you wouldn't be able to help as many people as you help every single day.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's a because you are a beautiful light.
Ah, thank you.
You have a beautiful energy, and you're just a
Thank you.
beautiful person.
Thank you.
So, among all of her many talents, that piece of art behind her she created. And I was asking her about it, and then she was telling me about it because
Yeah.
I was thinking about the texture, how much texture was on it. Go
Mm.
ahead. Do you want to share what that's made out of?
It's yeah, it's actually made out of denim jeans. And if I can swing my camera across without losing the camera, there's a piece of art, I'll point to it in my kitchen area that is actually made out of my husband's shirt. So as I just mentioned, I lost my husband 3 years ago, and he knew that I wanted to become a grief artist. I had made this piece of art out of denim jeans, and he was like, wow, you're going to be able to help so many people. And I had this huge canvas. I mean, it's 5 foot long. I'm only 5 foot. It's as long as I am. And it was painted by a student at my son's school. And when my son left, he came home with this canvas and said, Mum, the student doesn't want this canvas anymore. Do you want it? And I said, okay, it's huge, but all right. And Chris kept saying to me, because it's moved 3 times with me in different house moves, and he kept saying to me, one day you're going to make something amazing with that. And so when he died, I was like, oh, okay, I've got to do something with that. So I basically cut up all of his shirts at the back and cut them into strips and wove them all together and then glued them around. And then it's edged with his denim jeans. So yes,
Amazing.
I your loved ones, and I turn it into wall art. Or I can make wall hangings or rugs. I just don't do cushions and teddy bears because they're very fiddly, and lots of other people do those. So, like memory bears. We have a big thing
Right.
in UK about memory
Yes,
bears.
we had them
Yeah,
here too. They were
yeah,
really popular for a
yeah.
while.
So
I
yeah, I'm a
just think your
creative
work's
artist.
beautiful.
Thank
Yes,
you. It's
very, very beautiful.
I'm into texture. I like fabrics and wools, and I'm always knitting and creating crochet things, and I make jewelry and I paint sneakers, and I like to try my hands at lots of things. My grandfather was very good at turning his hand to anything, and I think I've taken a little bit of his spirit with me in terms of having a go at something new. I always like to be learning something new because there is a lot to learn in this world, and it's a forever journey.
There's there's just something so magical about, like, even when you talk about it, like you just light up. And
Bless you.
I'm envious because it looks like you have more sun than I do today.
Oh, well, I have to say, some of this is Thailand tan, but we have been blessed with amazing weather for the last month. So even before I went to Thailand, I was sitting out in the garden every day. So when I went to Thailand, I was quite used to the heat. And since I've come back, we've had glorious weather. So I'm not usually this brown. I am very much a Celtic, pale and pasty. So it's quite unusual for me to be looking this brown. It makes my teeth look really white. And they're not turkey teeth, they're my own.
Well, you look great.
Thank
And I
you.
want to thank you for today. Thank you for all of your wisdom, all of your
Thank
knowledge,
you.
all of your energy.
Thank
And
you.
how tell us how people can
How
find
people can
you.
find me. Yeah, so my website is very easy. It's just www.hannahjago.com. Nice and easy. People can find me on Facebook. That's easy. Hannah of the Family Jago. I'm on TikTok and Instagram under my name, so it's quite easy to find me. There aren't
She's the
many Hannah Jagos in the world.
she is the one that is out there relentlessly selling her product.
Relentlessly posting. Thank you so
Go
much for having
Capricorn.
me. I love it. Thank you for having me as a guest. I really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed this, and I wish we had done it sooner. And I want us to keep in touch because
That's
I
absolutely.
love your energy.
Thank
You're just
you.
amazing. You're an amazing human
Well, if
being.
I can be of service to any of your listeners or to you in any other way, please just ask. So,
Thank you so much, and thank you
thank
for your
you.
time. And thank you, little puppy dog. Your dog
And
was
now we
better than
get the
mine.
dog. This is Tilly.
Hi, Tilly. Hi,
She knows we come
Tilly.
to the end. She knows the sound of the voice, and she's like, "Oh, you're finishing. It means I get cuddles."
Oh, well, she was really good. Unlike my squirrel chasers, I had to lock in the house.
Uh-oh. Well, we'll see you
Have a
soon.
beautiful, beautiful day. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much,
Thank
Hannah,
you.
and please stay well,
I will,
stay
and you.
blessed,
Yeah.
and keep your eyes open with your heart.
Uh, always.
Lots of love to you.
And you.
Okay, everyone. So you can reach her at her website, hannahjago.com. And please remember to like and share this video, and we will see you again next week. Bye bye.
Bye.